What is up, everybody? It is Og here, back with another video. And in today's video, I'm going to be showing you how I do the Slave Pens 1 pool. Now, there's a bunch of different ways to do the pool. I found this, though, to be the most kind of safe and consistent method. Huge shout out, though, to Tierra, Taiwon, and Jokered, who have been pushing the limits with the World First Race and after the World First Race with other variations of the farm. Definitely recommend you guys check out their stuff, whether it's on Twitch or YouTube as well, to see what they're doing with the farms. This is what I have found to be kind of the most safe method, and one that you could do even at a low level. And I'm talking as low as 61. You technically can go here at 62, but I'm about to jump in, or say it's 60, sorry, but I'm about to jump into why I would recommend waiting until 62. So we're going to start off the video going over the requirements. It's really important to know what spec you should be and kind of the theory behind that. You can run 2 different specs, but I highly recommend one specific spec that you can run, and then I will show you how to progress through the talents. We're also going to be running through the actual consumables I would recommend bringing, both if you're a gnome and not a gnome, because that will cause, different scenarios. And then we're going to run into some of the gear requirements that I recommend, or how to change things around if you don't have those gear requirements. From there, we'll go into the actual farm itself. There's a few main pools, which is going to be the first 2. Then there's additional pools, which is 3 and 4, if you guys want to do those pools as well. We will then show a level 61 doing it instead, just so that you guys can see that it's not just a level 70 doing it, making it look easy kind of idea. You can do it at a lower level, just with a little bit more focus and concentration. So I want to jump into the talents first. Now, while we were doing the actual stream at twitch.tv/Relays for the World First Race, we had an interesting question get asked by the people from Method, which was basically, why are we going down into the arcane tree to get presence of mind? And eventually we'll get presence of mind, but the more important thing to get in the arcane tree is actually arcane meditation. And the reason why I go down this strategy instead of going for water elemental is to get that arcane meditation. Now, if you have a ton of mana per 5, and mana per 5 is never going to be an issue for you for whatever reason, you can go and try to get water elemental instead. And so you can get clear casting, and then you can also get water elemental. But for most people, they are not going to be able to go all the way down. And so instead, I recommend having the Arcane Frost hybrid. So we go down the Frost tree, we get all the important Blizzard things. We don't need to worry about single target. Everything is going to be AOE farming. Get Ice Barrier, and then immediately jump over into the Arcane tree. We work our way down, getting 5 out of 5 clear casting, Arcane Fortitude. We also get 5 out of 5 magic absorption. So not only does it give you mana back if you resist spells, but additionally it increases all resistances by 10. And so if you can actually have a good amount of resistance, there's a decent chance you're actually going to be able to get a good amount of mana back, especially at the higher levels. From there, though, we get to the most important talent, which is Arcane Meditation, and then we start working towards Presence of Mind. Now, this is at level 61, and so from 61 onwards, you want to fill out Arcane Mind for 5 out of 5. Arcane Mind is going to increase your total intellect, which is going to be incredibly important for doing these farms. From there, you have a couple options. If you're having troubles with safety, I recommend jumping over to Improve Blink. And so what this does is it basically makes it so you take less damage after you blink, which is nice. Or if you're not having a problem with that, jump over to Arctic Winds. This also will reduce the chance you get hit, but it also increases your frost damage, which will lead to quicker kills. So it's up to you what you want to fill out from there. I chose to go Arctic Winds while doing the actual leveling process myself, but this is the talent tree I would recommend by the time you get 70 for Slave Pens farming. I'll also have this link down in the description down below, the level 61 talent, so you can take it from there. Let's talk a little bit about consumables. So this is a very long kill phase. The entire kill phase, you don't have a ledge you're bouncing back and forth on. There's no great mana regen opportunities that you have. And so the consumables are really going to be predicated upon keeping up your mana as much as possible. There's also certain tactics where we're going to try to avoid mobs, but the most important thing is probably that MP5. So let's jump into those MP5 things first. Right off the bat, you can see that I have one potion up here, which is Mage Blood Potion. So Mage Blood Potion is going to be very useful for this farm. Mage Blood Potion will give us 12 MP5. We also have Night Fin Soup. Night Fin Soup is going to be 8 MP5. So from those 2 items, we have 20 MP5. Then we go into Brilliant Mana Oil. Brilliant Mana Oil is going to give us an additional 12 MP5. And so now, just from those items alone, we basically have the equivalent of a Blessing of Wisdom from a Paladin. So highly recommend those 3 consumables for your MP5. Now, when we're actually trying to do the run itself, we're going to run into some additional kind of issues. If you're trying to do all the pulls that are possible, you're going to be encountering some mobs called Enchantresses. Enchantresses cast a lightning bolt on you that does a ton of damage and will obliterate your ice barrier if you don't move away from it and get hit. And so I highly recommend, if you're going to do that pool, having greater nature protection potions. Now, you don't need to do this pool till later on because honestly, it's not going to work within your reset time when you're first getting started and at lower levels, unless you have a ton of other consumables like world buffs, etc., that you're burning through the mobs really quick with. So I'd recommend waiting until probably like 65 if you want to bring in the greater nature protection potions, but those will be helpful. If you're not a gnome, you're also going to want to have free action potions. Free action potions are going to be very helpful if you're not a gnome to try to avoid some of the slows that are going to happen. You don't need to use free action potions, and I'm actually going to show the run as if I didn't have any kind of free action potions or being a gnome. So you 100% can do it without those, but they will be helpful just to make it a little bit safer if you are not a gnome for this run. Lastly, these are going to be kind of specific things. If you have dense dynamite, if you're an engineer, or easy throw dynamite, if you want to pick them up. And then major mana potions, highly recommend keeping those stacked. And I would also keep major healing potions as well, just to make sure that if anything does go awry, you at least can, pick yourself back up. With this strategy, the gear requirements actually are not that crazy. Now, if you're a lower level, you're going to need more hit, and we'll jump into that in just a second, but you do not actually need Blade of Eternal Darkness. So some people are thinking that you need Blade of Eternal Darkness for this farm. That is not the case. This is actually the gear that I ran with for my World First Challenge that I did. And so I do have at least 5-piece T2. I highly recommend 5-piece T2 if you can get it. There's probably still going to be some people down the road running BWL to try to get it. If you don't have it, you don't need it, but it is very helpful to try to get the mobs as stacked as possible. If you don't have a lot of hit and the mobs have a good chance of resisting you and you don't have 5-piece T2, you're probably going to struggle a lot. And so I highly recommend trying to have either a ton of hit or 5-piece T2 if you need that. So moving on from there, I go for mana per 5. You can see Shimmering Geta, Pendant of the Fallen Dragon, Seal the Archmagus, everything with mana per 5. We're just trying to get as much mana per 5 as possible. And then Spirit. You want a lot of Spirit. And so the easy way to think about it, guys, is just take 4 Spirit and 1 MP5. And that's the conversion rate. So just for every 4 Spirit, you get 1 MP5. Easy way to think about it. Here, obviously, Shadowing Focus Staff. So as I said before, no Blade of Eternal Darkness. My gear is not crazy. It's good, but it's BWL level. It's not Nax level. It's not even AQ40 or anything like that. It's BWL level gear. I don't have MQG. And so some added benefits. If I could have it, I would have much more hit and MQG, which is my quickening gem, because that would increase my haste at level 60 by 33%. And then moving on from there, it'll decrease a little bit, but it'll increase my haste by a lot, which is really going to help to keep the mob stacked as well with Blizzard. So the reason I keep on bringing up hit is that is probably where most people are going to have their issues. Their issue is that the mobs are not going to stay stacked. There's no ledge that we can kite back and forth on. And so you have to keep them stacked with Blizzard. But if you have a chance to be resisted, then you're going to have the mobs get a little bit out of control more easily. And so that's why it's really difficult to do this at a low level. Specifically, if a mob is 3 levels higher than you, you only have an 83% chance to hit that mob, which means a 17% chance to miss. If you're trying to kill 29 mobs at one time, there's a really good chance that a mob's going to miss. And if you don't have 5-piece T2, even if you do have 5-piece T2, there's a really good chance that your Blizzard won't slow the mob at all and it'll just be running towards you. You'll have to adjust and it'll just get out of control. And that is why I recommend waiting till a higher level. Most of the mobs in here are going to be between 62 and 64 at the high range. Most of them are going to be about 63, which means if you try to come in here at level 60, you're going to need to account for that 17% chance to miss. Now, you always have a 1% chance to miss, which means your maximum cap you get up to is 16%. And the talents changed in TBC such that we only have 3% from elemental precision instead of having 6%, which means that from your gear, you'll need to get 13% hit if you want to be hit capped at level 60. Obviously, that is a ton of hit to get. Some people will definitely have it, but that's a ton of hit to get on your gear while also maintaining 5-piece T2 as well, because that'll be the best piece of equipment that you can use. And so with that in mind, I would recommend entering no earlier than about 62. 61, you could definitely pull it off as well, but you're going to have those couple mobs that are going to be resisting pretty often. And then at 62, you only have about a 6% chance to be resisted, taken down to 3% chance by the talents, making it realistic that you can keep all the mobs pretty slowed throughout the entire run. Now that we've gone through the requirements, we're going to get started with the run itself. I'm actually going to treat this as a boost, so I'm going to move my mage inside the instance. Once he's inside the instance, he will get full experience, which is about 50,000 experience per run. Additionally, he gets about 350 reputation per run, and the reputation is the important part about the run itself. If you guys didn't know, you basically want to run dungeons until you get reputation capped. And what I mean by that is at the point which mobs no longer give you reputation, then go do quests. Now you want to do the quests so they aren't gray because then you're going to get less reputation, but you want to do them after you do the dungeons. That way you can get to revered. If you do all of the quests, you're going to run into issues where you're not revered easily, and then you can't go do heroics because you can't get the heroic key that is needed to enter the instance. And so this is one big benefit of a boost like this or running these dungeons. So you can leave the tune at the start and he will get full benefits as far as reputation and XP goes. We start off the run by aggroing those 2 packs. Don't mind the Mist Blizzard, never happened. And then we run through here and we're going to blink past this group. Now at a lower level, you will aggro this group, and this guy or the guy back behind here will try to cast Frostbolt. As a gnome, you have Escape Artist, which can get you out of this. As a non-gnome, you may want to use a free action potion. Alternatively, what you can do is you can get around the corner here, block, cancel block, Nova, and then blink ahead. There will be these 2 other mobs. Hopefully they're coming through here. If you block and they aggro, then you can blink past them. Otherwise, you may have to use a Cone of Cold to slow them. There, I don't aggro because I'm a higher level, and I just Nova the other 2 mobs as I run through. You're now going to see a pack of 3 mobs in the middle. They pack out, back, over, out, back, over, out, back, over. You want to try to pull this group behind them if possible, but if it's going to be too risky, don't try it. At below level 62, I recommend not trying it at all because you're probably going to pull this group or this group. If you pull these guys, you're going to get slowed by Frostbolt. If you pull these guys, you're going to have an Enchantress in your pool, which is probably going to kill you, especially at that low level. If you do want to grab this pack, I recommend using Blizzard or Thorium Grenade. If you can use a Thorium Grenade, that's going to be better because you're going to be able to reach further. And so you'll be able to throw the Thorium Grenade and then bow out. But if you need to use Blizzard, basically you got to watch this position. I am level 70, so I can get pretty close to these mobs without aggroing. Below probably 67, I would have aggroed right there. So you got to be careful with what you do and whether or not you want to risk grabbing those extra mobs. You can always get them with a later pool if you wanted to, but it's just for the extra XP. You're then going to run through this box track pack, and as soon as that first mob aggros and hits you, you're going to blink through. Now you want to let the first mob hit you so that you can basically blink to the end of the mobs. Obviously they don't aggro on me right there as I'm level 70, but you will see it in the lower level video that the mob aggros early and then we blink through the rest of the mobs. Let that first mob hit you though. You won't break your shield, it shouldn't break your shield, and then you'll be able to blink past. If it does break your shield, block, cancel block the daze, and then keep on running. We're now in this corridor, but we need a bunch of mobs to stack up. And so what we're going to do is we're going to continuously drop rank 1 Blizzard, step forward, rank 1 Blizzard, step forward, rank Blizzard. The reason why we're not holding it too much is if we hold it, the mobs at the front are just going to continue moving forward. Now I hold this because we have a clear casting, and so I want to max out the clear casting. But you're going to see here that we're going to hold this Blizzard, and this defender gets pretty close to actually running outside the Blizzard. And so here we would have to Nova or just drop a rank 1 Blizzard. And here he runs forward. So what you actually want to do is you want to rank 1 Blizzard, step forward, rank 1 Blizzard, step forward. We still have stragglers coming through the back, obviously back there you can see. And what that does is it eventually stacks up all the mobs into a tight stack. Here's where the hit rating comes into play. Here's where the 5-piece T2 comes into play, where I highly recommend having those. If you need to use Thorium Grenades as well to get them stacked up, that's also a great option. But we're basically using rank 1 until we can get these 2 mobs aggroed. Now I like to aggro these 2 technicians. You don't have to aggro them. You could just kite back through the hallway, so just switch directions and kite back through the hallway and not worry about any technicians in the first pool. I like to pull them though so that there's 2 less technicians in the second pool. Technicians are really annoying because they drop down Rain of Fire, and so that's the pain part with the technicians. So what you're going to see here is it's going to cast Rain of Fire, and you can either sit in this or just move out of it. It will do a decent amount of damage, but if you have up, Ice Barrier, you should be okay. Outside of that, we're stepping forward. I did throw a grenade on the middle of the mobs, and I dropped a Presence of Mind. So let's go back and just talk about the Presence of Mind and why we're doing that. Basically right here, what I'm trying to do is I'm trying to stack up all the mobs. So I drop Blizzard actually on top of the technicians, letting the rest of the mobs run into that same kind of area. This makes it so all the mobs are pretty stacked. At this point, I want to do typically Blizzard because I know the techs are going to go into their Rain of Fire in the next kind of spell. That's why I drop Presence of Mind, Flame Strike right there. Now, it wasn't far enough back where it hit a lot of the mobs, unfortunately, so we didn't get off a lot of damage with it. But if we were able to hit all the mobs, that'd be a perfect spot, because now the technicians are going to try to cast, and they'll stop moving within that Flame Strike radius. Now, it, again, was a little bit late, so they aren't getting ticked at the front, but you can see how a Flame Strike there could really benefit and do some extra damage. It's not necessary, as we said with the spec, even if you don't want to use Palm, if you want to save Palm for something else, feel free. Flame Strike just adds in a little bit of damage because it's not AoE capped on the ground, so it can add in some nice ticks. But we then want to switch fields. So what I do is I blink to left of the mobs, I Nova, and if I get any mobs that resist, and especially at a lower level, I'm going to Cold Snap Nova right away. You don't want to take the risk of having any mobs follow you. If they do follow you, use rank 1 Blizzard just to slow them up a little bit. From there, though, we're moving forward to this hall. Now you can see this little corner, and what's happening here is the mobs are kind of working towards this corner. Corners are amazing because corners are line of sight for you, but you can still blizzard around the side. So what you want to do is you want to leverage the corner as much as possible to try to cast around the side and hold these blizzards for a long time because the mobs are going to have to run out and then down. So they just sit in the blizzard for a little bit longer, which is really nice. But once we get past that corner, I'm going to drop a rank 1 blizzard there just to focus on stacking. Don't have to hold rank 1 blizzards for the entire time. They're for stacking purposes. They are not for killing purposes. If you want to hold them the entire time for mana purposes, you can, but you should not need to do that, and it's probably better to not do that. Here, I hold it for about half of the cast, and then I move and drop down to max rank blizzard where I can get off more damage because I focused on stacking up the mobs. Once we get to the end of this hallway, there's a couple pathing options that these guys have. The mobs can pat down like this, or they can pat out like this. The important thing is to try to make sure that these mobs are slowed as you come around the side. Now, I hold these mobs for a long time here, and so you're going to see that the mobs kind of follow me straight down, but otherwise they could pat out. But there's one important thing to notice, and that is that Blizzard has changed the way that the mobs will run around line of sight, around corners if you're not in line of sight. If I'm not in line of sight, if I'm down here and the mob gets out of my Blizzard, this mob is going to run like a superhuman around at like 300% movement speed to try to catch up to me. It's a change that Blizzard instituted a little bit ago, and you can see it during the world first attempt. A bunch of mobs just sprint around the corner and quickly get on top of me. So I'd recommend trying to keep rank 1 Blizzard going to try to keep the mob slowed as much as possible. Drop a Nova if you have to here, and try to keep the Blizzard when you go down to the bottom. And so here, I'm going to go down to the bottom side and immediately Blizzard right behind me to try to keep these mobs slowed as they come around the side. And then you'll see some mobs go out, some mobs come down, but they all end up stacking up, which is great. We now want to keep up our blizzards. Obviously, the technicians are going to be still, casting rain of fire whenever they possibly can. So you got to pay attention to that. But the goal here is basically if a mob gets too close, you Nova it like that and then step forward. Drop a rank 1 blizzard. If there's a, rain of fire on you, blink forward, blizzard if you need to, etc. And now it's just a cat and mouse game all the way through this little corridor. Now, obviously, I'm going to kill these mobs a little bit earlier, but I am going to show you guys how to basically handle this if the mobs aren't this low and if you need to do a turnaround, because obviously we won't need to do a turnaround here. So here we're at that same kind of part, but I'm purposely just spamming rank 1 Blizzard just to try to keep these mobs at a higher health, because I want to show you guys how to turn around and work your way back through this entrance area. What we're going to do is we're basically going to drag them all the way down this pathway, all the way to the wall. That's going to cause them to be as far away from these pipes as possible. The pipes are actually line of sight, and if you have a blizzard going on top of, or if you have mobs going below the pipe, they can actually line of sight the blizzard and not get slowed. So you want to keep them away from the pipes when you do your switch. But then you blink to the side, just like before, we run forward. You can see that one resisted, so I drop 1 tick of rank 1 blizzard behind me. Same kind of idea. Always drop a rank 1 blizzard if one resists, or cold snap Nova if you need to try to make sure that those mobs are stacked. But there you can see that mob just ran straight through that blizzard because of the pipe. So that's what we're trying to avoid. But now we step forward, we keep on using rank 1 blizzard until they all get stacked up. They're back into a good stack. And so we're going to pop our cooldowns and we're just going to pump the mobs down. And you can see that the first pull is pretty easy. Get down the mobs. Just to show you the XP, I'm going to show you the end of the first pull. You can see the XP coming through there. I am rested, but I'm getting about 2,000 experience per mob, which is a little bit more than half of what I would have gotten if I was doing it solo. And so you can see here we are at 62,961 experience. We came in at about 11,000, so we got about 51,000 experience for that first pool. Obviously rested though, so it'd be about half of that. Now that we finished pool number 1, we are on to pool number 2. This is going to be much harder than pool number 1, but if you have a solid understanding of pool number 1's kill phase, you're going to be able to execute through pool number 2, no problem at all. The first difficult part is how to actually aggro these mobs, and this is actually what I struggled with early on into the world first competition, because I didn't have enough practice with the proper way to pool this grouping of 4 mobs. What I figured out is base it off of Menu's position and then kite the mobs far away. And so if Menu is almost at the top of the ramp. As you can see right here, we want to get going immediately. So we're actually going to go over, we're going to go behind the ramp, aggro the 2 mobs over the right, and bring them over to the left. If Menu is walking down the ramp, that means that we have to wait a little bit. So we're going to go over to the mobs on the far side, pull them first, then pull the mobs over by Menu in the front. If Menu is going up, but at the base of the ramp, we can aggro the mobs in the back and aggro the mobs in the front before we need to go over to the side. But to play it safe, always just basically try to make sure that Menu is going to be far out of the way before you even aggro the mobs over to the right, just so you don't aggro them. So here I see Menu is up at the top. So because he's up at the top, I'm going to aggro the mobs as quickly as possible, drag them over to the other group. The one thing with this is that now we have these mobs following us. So we are going to have to be cognizant of them following us right here. Miss my Nova, never happened. Cone of Cold though behind me just to slow up these mobs, and then rank 1 Blizzard. The technicians are going to do Rain of Fire just like before, are actually going to cast a slow on you called Cripple. And this slow is, I think, 15 seconds long, and so it is going to be a big hindrance for you. As a gnome, you have Escape Artist, which I'm about to use once, but that's the same as using a block. So you can also use a block, but you can also use a free action potion. A free action potion would be really nice right here just to kind of make sure that they won't cast on you. Also, while you have Cripple on you, they will not cast Cripple again. However, they will finish their first cast of Cripple. So if you get Cripple cast on you and another one had just started his cast, you'll get another cast of Cripple 2 seconds later, whether you cancel off Cripple or not. So be cognizant to not cancel Cripple right away, or else you could run into a situation where it just comes immediately back onto you. So just be careful with that. But now that we aggro the mobs in the back, we're going to slow these mobs and then we're going to blink forward. You can see Cripple is being cast. This is a weak aura that I highly recommend getting. I'll have them linked down in the descriptions down below so you can get them. They tell you when to run. And basically when you see this, that means that he's trying to cast Cripple, so he's in range. He'll cast it at max range, which means if you run forward, you won't get hit by Cripple. There's a similar one for Lightning Bolt, where start casting Lightning Bolt, move forward, you won't get hit by Lightning Bolt kind of idea. Very nice weak aura created by FP. Thank you, FP. Shout out to you for making this. Really nice weak aura. But you can see here that I use Escape Artist. I'm running forward. And now we aggro the groups in the corner. Now we need to focus on funneling them down this tunnel. So the best way to funnel them down the tunnel is just very quickly rank 1 Blizzard move, rank 1 Blizzard move, rank 1 Blizzard move. So here, rank 1 Blizzard for 1 tick, slow down some mobs. Rank 1 Blizzard, slow down some mobs. Move forward, Blizzard. Now that I have a good amount of them just coming through the corridor at the same time, I'm going to hold this Blizzard a little bit longer. You do see that I get another Cripple cast on me. That's okay though, because you can also leverage Blink. So the way that I basically dealt with that previous Cripple right there is that I blinked ahead, and I'm going to do that same thing right here. So I'm going to blink. Actually, I get crippled again. But you don't really need to worry about it too much if you have Blink up, because if you get a bunch of Rain of Fires on you, you just blink forward just like that. And now we're ranging it. As you can see, they're not going to reapply Cripple. So as long as I line of sight the next one, we're going to be perfectly fine. So with that in mind, I'm going to drop the rank 1 Blizzard right here just to try to slow down the mobs. And then we're going to bolt around the side before the Cripple goes off so we don't get slowed, and immediately put the Blizzard down behind us. Now the reason why we're doing this is, as you can see there, they were about to sprint forward and sprint down and just be really close to me. And so instead, what we do is we drop the Blizzard around the corner so that they get slowed and they're away from me. Now it's that same kind of cat and mouse game. You can basically wait till they cast Rain of Fire and you're about to get crippled, run forward, Blizzard. Rank 1 Blizzard when they're not stacked, max rank Blizzard when they are stacked. Even if you get hit with cripple, you blink forward. So right there, we saw Blizzard was going to be cast, so we blinked forward. I knew a lot of them were casting Rain of Fire, so I waited with rank 1 Blizzard for them all to stack back up, then max rank Blizzard. Here's cripples coming in, but I'm holding a max rank Blizzard, so I'm actually just going to sit through that and then blink out of it because I know that I can. This mob resisted a couple of my slows, so he's on top of me. So I'm going to cast a Cone of Cold, get another clear casting, so I Arcane Explosion, and then I Nova him. Now I'm just trying to get these guys stacked up again. I notice I get a clear casting. There's a cripple. There's nothing I can really do at this point. There's no range that I could go. And so instead I'm going to blink to the side right here, which is going to cause the mobs to kind of veer off in this direction. If you need to, this is when you can turn around and you can run back. You can pop a block and you can just run back away. Because the mobs are so slow though, I can just take them out right here and not need to worry. So pool number 2 is definitely more difficult than pool number 1. You have to worry about Menu's positioning so you don't pull him. You also have to worry about the cripple coming from the mobs and the Rain of Fire being on top of that cripple. Name of the game though is just stay max range at all times. If cripple is getting cast, move forward. If you need to eat a cripple to try to keep your max rank Blizzard rolling to try to keep damage, use blink instead to blink forward. Now you can see our XP is at 91,000 experience. So far we've gotten 80,000 experience or 40,000 in about 10 minutes. This is going to be the meat of the experience. This is probably all you're going to do when you're starting off. These two pools alone, now they take me about, the fastest I've done is like 8 minutes, 22 seconds or something like that. But when I was getting started, they took about 15 minutes to get these two pools down because you're going to be running into a lot of mana issues. Pop your mana, rubies, and gems on cooldown, guys. Pop your major mana potion on cooldown. It's going to cost you some consumes, but it's going to be worth it because you're going to be able to keep up your mana and not run into a situation where you don't have enough mana to slow the mobs or to put up an ice barrier or a fire shield if you need it. So don't worry about the mana cost of the actual items. You'll recuperate that in the actual gold that you get from the dungeon, but focus on just trying to make sure that you always have enough mana to do whatever you need to do. We're now going to get started with pool number 3. Now, before we jump too far into pool number 3, I want to kind of preface this and say, don't try this unless you really want to push the experience and you have plenty of time in your lockouts before your level's probably 66. Basically, the enchantresses in this pack, or in this pack that we're about to pull, cast lightning bolt on you. That lightning bolt will hit for 900 to 1,000 damage, which we have 6,000 health. Doesn't take many lightning bolts to take us out. There's also another mob that casts Immolate and throws grenades at you. The grenades hit pretty hard, another about 1,000 damage, I believe. And then the Immolate, if you get that dot on you, not only does damage off the bat, but then also ticks on you. And so you need to block off the Immolate and cancel Aura Block if that ever comes and actually hits you. So you want to make sure you outrange those at all times. Then on top of that, there is actually a Nether Ray, or like a Stingray, whatever it's called, back here, that will actually fear you. So with all that in mind, this pool is not that fun. Shout out to the people who make it look really easy. It took me a lot of practice to try to get down these pools. But basically the idea is that I want to pull these back 2 packs. The pack that we avoided when we're running into the instance, we know that they pat like this. They make a nice little L shape. So we pull them, we pull the left pack. This pack on the right here will probably pull, however they'll reset. So as long as you keep on running forward, the pack that hugs the wall with the frost bolts will actually reset before you need to worry about them. There is a third pack though that you want to pull, which has the champion and then 2 of the ones which you pull. They either run back and forth like this, and so you pull along the way and just pull them wherever they are, pull them into this grouping. Then you hug the outside, and basically what's going to happen is all the mobs funnel through this kind of like straightaway location. It's kind of like you see these rays that are coming through right now actually. So they funnel through this location. You can see those lightning bolts going off, and so you can see this one casting the lightning cloud. The lightning cloud you don't need to worry about, but the lightning bolt right there, when you see that notification, move. We're just going to cast rank 1 blizzards to try to stack every mob until we see assist me slaves. When we see this, we know that this group around the corner has just aggroed. Since they aggroed, what we want to do is we immediately want to slow down the mobs as much as possible as they come around the side, and we also want to put up Frost Ward. Frost Ward gives us, I believe, a 20% chance to reflect frost abilities, which makes it a lot more likely that we're going to resist or reflect the frostbolt. Otherwise, the frostbolt's going to really hurt. But by doing this blizzard around the corner, we're also slowing all these mobs up here so we can drop a flame strike. Our goal is to burn through the extra workers as quickly as humanly possible. They're non-elites, they don't have much health, but the frostbolts will really mess you up because if you're trying to avoid the lightning bolt or you're trying to avoid Immolate or something like that, you could run into a situation where you're too slow and you can't get away from it. Here I'm getting a ton of clear casting procs, which is amazing, but you can see that we just keep on blizzarding through, and we actually have some of those non-elite mobs die in the back, and so we don't need to worry about frostbolts anymore. That's going to be the hardest part when you're getting started. You also want to pop the Greater Nature Protection Potion before we get to this part, because now you're going to be getting hit with some of these, lightning bolts probably. You can see the Stingray running forward towards us. And so we want to just focus on keeping these mobs as controlled as possible. Here I cold snap Nova, this champion behind me, and I'm just dropping rank 1 blizzard. It got really sloppy, so I'm just doing the rank 1 blizzard tick and step forward kind of strategy to try to slow down those mobs as much as possible. You can see there I get hit by the throwing grenade. I'm getting pelted by this arcane bolt, lightning bolt. This pool is not fun. There's a lot of damage coming at you. If you're level 70, you're fine. You can resist a lot of these things. But at a lower level, it's going to be really difficult. But it's the same kind of idea. We kite them around. We bring them into this area. Once they get past this kind of intersection right here, we want to blink over to the side to try to get them to stack back up. You're going to run into mana issues here on this phase at lower levels probably, just because there's a lot of damage that needs to be done to these mobs, and you're constantly moving to avoid lightning bolts. So you're probably going to be wasting a good amount of mana. So you want to make sure you keep the mobs as stacked as possible. Here we can see the observers casting an immolate. Don't let that immolate come on. Silence that if it ever is going to happen to make sure you don't get hit by that. But we're now able to take out these mobs. So this third pool, you really need to focus on avoiding the lightning bolts as much as possible and trying to stack the mobs. As soon as you aggro that group of the slave workers and the other mob, try to burn them down as quickly as possible because the frost bolts can make it really, really difficult. Now, again, you can see we got about another 20,000 experience there. Again, 10,000 if you are not rested. Now, if you really, really have time, you could do one more pool. This last pool is hardly going to net you any experience. But if you have that 15-minute timer, you can do it because otherwise you might get locked out and then hearthed if you're doing the reset trick. Or if you run outside the instance, you might just get locked out. So if you are trying to do the 15 minutes, just keep on repeat through the dungeons and you have extra time. As you can see here, we're at 14 minutes. You could do this pool. Basically, the idea here is to aggro up all these mobs. Now, as we know, they are going to cast Frostbolt, and so we need to avoid that somehow. So what we're going to do is we're going to come over to the side. We're going to aim towards the hallway, and then we're going to block. Once we cancel aura block, make sure you're using the cancel aura ice block macro. We're going to blink straight ahead here to basically line of sight the mobs as quickly as possible. When you pop block, the mobs will stop casting Frostbolt, all converge on you. And so then we come out of here, blink, run around the side. We're going to cast rank 1 Blizzard just to get one tick just to slow down those mobs and get around the side before any of those Frostbolts actually get off. So make sure you're close enough to be able to blink, get up, and line of sight. From there, standard kiting strategy. I'm throwing dynamites just to do extra damage for free. You definitely don't need engineering for this pool, guys. There's nothing that you technically need for this pool. There's just things that help. Highly recommend having MP5. Highly recommend having mana potions. Highly recommend having healing potions. And if you're an engineer, bring some dynamite. If you're not an engineer and you want to bring easy throw dynamite, bring easy throw dynamite. Bring thorium grenades to stun the mobs if you're an engineer. It's little things that do help, but they aren't necessary. At the end of the day, there's no hard requirement for this pool. Just try to have as much spirit, MP5 as possible to try to keep your mana going. As you can see, the mana is definitely the biggest issue. Have tons of mana pots ready to go. If you want to have dark runes, you can have dark runes, and you should be perfectly fine pulling off this pool. It's all about keeping the mobs controlled the entire time. Rank 1 blizzards to get them stacked. When they're perfectly stacked, max rank blizzards, melt through the mobs. Get the crazy experience, get the crazy loot even. The loot's actually pretty decent. If you have a chest, that's a guaranteed 5 gold from the chest plus items as well. And then you're getting items off the mobs. And so you can expect 15 raw gold per run just from loot. And then you also have the, actual loot table on top of that. So you can get decent gold. It's potentially going to be a soul boost, but hopefully this kind of helps you see how to do the runs. Now I'm going to show you footage from doing it at a low level just so you can kind of get a bearing of how to do it at a low level. I am going to speed it up to 400% speed though, so it doesn't turn into a 50-minute video.
So you wanna go to war with me? You're talking like you think you're royalty. You think that I'm afraid, but I don't break. I heard you question my stability. You think I'll fall just like a guillotine, but I am here to stay. Won't look away. The storm is coming, so you better start running. No, you can't control. Feel it in my bones. I'm coming for the, coming for the. I'm coming for the throne. For the throne. my enemy. You should've known I'd never kiss the rain. Ice runs in my veins, won't play it safe. I don't belong with your nobility. Who died and made you king of anything? You think that I'm insane, it's your mistake. Kingdoms rise and fall, I've come to take it all. I'll take it, I've come to take it. Kingdoms rise and fall, I've come to take it all. I'll take it all. The storm is coming, so you better start running. No, you can't control, feel it in my bones. I'm coming for the, coming for the. I'm coming for the throne.